Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero. Our guest today is Kayvan Nikjou. He is an innovation consultant, a contributor to Forbes magazine, and a co-founder of Magnetica International, which is an Amsterdam-based consultancy with a particular expertise in the easily taken for granted but absolutely crucial field of global mobility. Co-hosting this episode with Pete is the Break It Down show's technology advisor and our wonderful friend, Sandra Ponce, and they talk about, among other things, the tremendous impact that shipping has on pollution. And Kayvan's got the numbers. Get this, the 16 largest active container ships create more pollution getting our stuff around annually than all of the cars. That looks like a great place to solve a big problem. And we know just the guy to foster the innovation to do it. You're going to love him. He's our guest today, Kayvan Nikjou.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick
This
Marotta.
is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Kayvan Nikjou from Magnetica International. You're listening to Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, so today we've got Kayvan Nikjou on, and the reason why we bring Kayvan in is because I like to bring different perspectives. It's easy for us to get lost in the American perspective and only think about these things. And as you all know, I bring in lots of experts from a variety of fields so that we're all kind of stretched and pulled out of our comfort zone. So this is a bit of a stretch for me technology-wise, and so I've got my co-host, Sandra Ponce de Leon, in the house with me. Thank you, Sandra, for co-hosting.
Thanks for having me. So excited to be on this new show, on the Break It Down show.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually ever been on.
Is that true? How can that be possible?
I have never made it as a guest.
Well, we'll fix that right away. Anyhow, so Sandra's going to be on here. So this is us just exploring technology and innovation with Kayvan, talking about what he does. The best place to look up Kayvan's work is on LinkedIn, and it's Kayvan, Kayvan, Nikjou, Nikjou. We're recording. Well, he's in Netherlands, and Sandra and I are both in California. So these things are, I'd love being able to do this, reach across the ocean and well into the European continent. So thank you so much for coming on, Kayvan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's really, technology-wise, it's really cool to have this cross-continent chat, and it can be instant, so we don't need to. Yeah, and the quality usually should be good. So yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Let's pay the bill early here. Let's talk a little bit about this event that you're working on, because that already sounds fascinating. I mean, you're already in the innovation space, and there are so many things to talk about. But in particular, this green tech event in Berlin that you're putting together. Give us an idea what that's all about.
Oh yeah, Green Tech Festival is an idea that came together from a couple of things, and mainly there is a huge run towards from corporates and from a lot of celebrities and organizations to be green towards mobility and to really connect people in a green manner. But there's not really actionable go-to places where people actually, or corporations or organizations, can take action and converse in a meaningful way. So there's this very bright half German, half Finnish Formula One world champion called Nico Rosberg, who a couple of years ago, when he won his Formula One championship, decided to announce by complete surprise, took a complete surprise the entire world, and announced his retirement from the sport and focus on investing and helping the mobility landscapes and green technology to thrive. So this is the event that epitomizes or brings it all together. So it's a fantastic, really, really fantastic event that is bringing together 4 modules of green technology. And, they have the expo part, which is for you Americans, it's more towards CES in Las Vegas, where you can see the green technology being actually in practice in hardware form. And then you have the Leaders Conference, where we're bringing together probably about 800 to 1,000 guests to listen to speakers on green technology. And then there is a whole city-wide run. So there's like a massive, similar to marathon, but a run for green tech. And then there is this Formula E World Championships or World Championship race in Berlin, which is it's like Formula One, but for electric cars, and that's going to host around 25,000 people on its own. And the final, actually, fifth element, which I forgot to mention, is the Green Awards. The Green Awards is like the Oscars for green tech, and the previous winners are Elon Musk and Sir David Attenborough, etc. So it's a real impacting thing. But Nico's idea was to bring everything together, and I'm in a journey to help him to achieve that.
So,
wow.
David Attenborough. I know that he's the voice right now. Currently, he's the voice of Dynasties. What else is he doing to make him worthy of getting an award in that space?
Well, David already has got an award. I mean, his previous years, his Green Awards has been going on for about 10 years, and it's really prestigious in Europe. But Sir David Attenborough, I mean, he's to us in Europe, he's not such like a television personality. He's really a legend who's walking and influencing our lives. We take him very seriously here, and we are super honored that he is European and he's supporting this cause for which is the nature and environmentalism, and it's important to have someone like that at the events, and he creates an immense conversation and really is a catalyst towards governments and corporations to change their change their future towards more green. And he's been a fantastic spokesperson for the entire world. So yeah.
I've actually seen a few of his remarks and videos coming out of the WEF. So yeah, he's been a great advocate for the environment. I'm sure you've heard recently about what Tesla is doing with regards to their patents and Elon Musk releasing those. What do you think about that? Do you think that that's the future for technology? Is it going open source to enable, the masses to really adopt it and innovate on it?
Yeah, you said it perfectly, Sandra. I mean, it's really for us, Elon Musk is obviously a great renegade to have on our side, and in general on the Earth side. And I think it's a fantastic thing what he's doing, and he's taking initiative to do that. I mean, he's not the first one to do it. I mean, Volvo did it in 1950s to open the patents for the three-point seat belt, which has kept many of us alive since then. So yeah, Tesla is. I mean, Elon is doing the thing that German corporates would never do, or many corporates would never do. They just won't. I mean, they will. What corporates usually, unfortunately, and as we know, it's not like a conspiracy theory or anything. It's just that they look first for themselves, and then they profit and then shareholders. Whereas I think Musk is saying that they can't do all these things on their own. Tesla is seriously not capable of doing a lot of things on their own, and it's better that we do it all together. Coming from what you said, Sandra, and coming from World Economic Forum in Davos, where I was, the situation is actually more serious than what you hear online or in news regarding the environment and the earth. It's not a joke anymore, and it's like the companies who were there, from heads of Bank of England to even the most morbid corporations, they are really figuring it out that there is really not more than 10 years to go until this thing is going to collapse. So that I think that's where also Musk is trying to avoid.
So scary.
The whole thing, it does really seem to be accelerating and becoming, I guess we're also covering it more and just becoming more aware. But these kind of events where you put all these folks together, how do you get that to break out into other people so that they can take the message in a way? I mean, it's one thing to talk to yourselves in an echo chamber, but how do you knock down those walls?
You see, Peter, I think it's just about trying to bring those people together is already 80% of the achievement unlocked. So if you just bring them together, and then on the next 20% is really having public conversation and accountability from those speakers to say, hey, we are actually working on this, and these are good things happening. Here are some of the things that are happening right now. And then do breakaway sessions, which we're planning very meticulously to actually bring a lot of these elements into breakaway sessions where people 20 to 30 people or even less can have a really intimate debate and learnings from corporations who are currently being part of the larger part of Earth's CO2 emissions. So it's not like a thing where it's not an event where we are thinking, all right, let's just organize an event and hopefully something will come out of it. No, we're really this is a 5 to 10 year goal. Like it's a sprint, more like a marathon, we like to think, because we don't have time for marathons anymore. So we are thinking, okay, in 5 years time with this event, bringing people together and putting them into environments where they're able to actually have conversations and led by a host that knows what they're talking about, and not letting them off the hook at the event, and then also follow up after the event will somehow trigger some things, maybe partnerships, maybe investments, maybe some new campaigns, or really just something effective that we have listed. Would be some kind of a support. Maybe we could be somehow involved in turning this planet's the current situation around. I mean, we're not going to be saving it. Hopefully, we can be part of it and bring those people who are trying to save it together to meet those people who are not getting it yet. So that it's like a conversation at your house. You want to have different kind of people to give you different angles, but you as the host of the house have to be always on point and directional, and also very, very ominous. So at least we're trying. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that the beauty of what you're doing, and I think it really kind of rests on two things: the giving people the information to know that they can take action, and keeping them accountable to those actions. And part of that is also keeping leaders accountable. So us having in the U.S. here and demanding that our administration take up something like a Green New Deal, that's on us, and it's also on us as consumers to purchase products. And I think that the other part of that equation is actually letting people know that the solutions do exist. I mean, there's solutions to reverse climate change. You've got a company out there called Climeworks in Switzerland that's actually removing CO2 from the air, and so many other companies that are focused on different solutions to the problem. I guess I'm curious, Kayvan, what's the reason for starting with mobility versus so many other parts of green tech?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic question. Really appreciate that. A lot of people tend to clock out when you talk about animals and other stuff that is not in touch with you every day, especially in the developed world. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're American or Chinese. But what people do see and experience on a daily basis is mobility. They do see cars driving around, and ships and trains and airplanes, and you can't run away from it. So if you go one day into a diesel taxi in Germany and another day you go to a clean Tesla taxi in Norway, you realize there is a massive difference, and that the technology was the enabler. So bringing these mobility is obviously one core subject. It's not the ultimate focus. It's just a core subject of Green Tech Festival. But we feel by having a core subject that is impacting almost everybody in the developed world and undeveloped world, is much more easier to tackle the entire issue as an entirety than actually going into, hey, we're going to be completely wide and generic events. Because it's not only, the event is not going to be about, it's not going to be only about cars and trucks and stuff like that and electrifying them. It's also about showing attendees common, and even my mother, who was really skeptical about this, and showing that, yes, you can make a cleaner petrol, you can make a cleaner diesel, and we have software in place and technology that is enabled to make your old Nissan or Honda into much more cleaner with current technology. You don't need to actually go and buy a Tesla. You can have it right now cleaner, and you can contribute on your own. And then also make aware a lot of people like you and me. I didn't know maybe a year ago, I didn't know that actually whatever we do with electric cars, the shipping industry is the biggest polluter in the world. And we're not really battling it. I'm not sure if you know, but the 16 biggest ships in the world produce more pollution than all of the cars in the world. We're just talking about 16 ships in the world. So, I mean, one ship produces on one run about what entire world, entire Europe's taxis produce in a year in CO2. That is not something to take lightly. It's serious stuff. And we all depend on it. And your Amazon products come by ships, and they don't just appear from nowhere. So having an education in place for not just children and students, but actually people like myself and people like you, just saying, hey, there are these ships that are causing this. Can we solve it? Who has a solution? And let's bring these guys who run the ships together. So mobility, in essence, is a huge catalyst for humanity as well.
When we look at ships and the amount that they pollute, I mean, there's a ship full of evergreen containers pulling into all the ports in California every day. There's a new ship with just so many containers. So I can see that being a big thing. I'm assuming we don't want to use nuclear power to power these ships because then nuclear, material is getting out more than we're comfortable with. But what's the alternate? Can you reasonably run a battery for that? I mean, that seems like such a long distance to go from, Eastern Asia over to the United States in this example.
Yeah, absolutely. This is exactly the things that we want to also find out, bringing all these people together there. I don't have the answers. I know that there are technologies. I mean, batteries are a great start. I mean, there are hybrid technologies in place. It's some really forward-looking shipping companies from Norway are already testing hybrid solutions, or even tri-hybrid, like three solutions where you have three engines on board. Because one of the problems that ships have is that because they're so heavy, it takes them a long time to start and actually go on a flow. And once they go on that flow, they don't actually produce that much CO2. It's just that the starting and the maneuvering. So a lot of the companies are now experimenting engines, which are, hydrogen engines that they can kick off the ship leaving the port. And once it gets to the open ocean, they can switch into the heavy diesel. But there is a gradual rise as well. It's not also the issue of is there batteries or not. It's just also an issue of what kind of rotaries, what kind of engine components, what kind of materials the ships use. Is it double protected, triple protected? It contributes to the heavy weight of it. So there's a lot of solutions in the air right now, but it's because it's so fragmented, the shipping industry, and they're so protected by ubiquitous laws based in London usually, where everything's run from. It's hard to crack open what's happening behind the scenes, and that's also this part of bringing this event together. So we find out first, and then we can maybe call upon startups and innovators to help us solve this, because the shipping owners do want to solve this issue, because they spend much more money on petrol than almost any other industry I know. So they are happy to find out also.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, getting that big load, whether it's a ship full of cars or widgets, the torque to break that load loose and get it moving, you're right. That is a big problem. And, producing torque, which is something an electric motor is great at, can you make, do you have like a slingshot of tugboats or something that help get you not only out of the port, but on your way up to speed? What can you do to do it? It's a great engineering problem. That's fascinating. Like Sandra, I had no idea that was the case. So
wow.
when we look at these kinds of solutions, what are the other big things out there that we just haven't been able to tackle because it is an established system? I mean, one of the things that Sandra and I have learned from exploring these kind of topics on our other show, Popping the Bubble, is the laws aren't in place to even deal with this. Like, you have to, oh, by the way, we're creating new medicine, but it's also part of Department of Agriculture. And so you've got to blend this new product that really doesn't legally fit in anywhere. It's got a category, but it's not elegant. Are there other things out there that are like shipping that are big problems that we can get after?
Yeah, I mean, the way, for example, liquid natural gas is one of the things that is kind of a savior to our industries in the future that not many people know. And NLG, as liquid natural gas is known, is actually, it's one of the things that could save our one of the biggest advances in technology, I think, in the last 100 years, that really has not been adapted. So it's not like there isn't, or is there some industries that need to be modernized. It's that they should also, I understand that the adaptation of existing technology should be way faster. So shipping exactly is a good example. When some countries ships from Norway or something can use a liquid natural gas, where ships from Qatar or Oman are not using it at all. So why is that? Also finding the information about and putting people to test of, hey, why are you not adapting this? There should be some other reason. But beyond shipping, I mean, really something that is, I don't know how it is in the United States, something that is really bothering us is also the airplane industry and the amount of noise and pollutants it produces. And it's not just normal gas emissions of CO2. They're really, really cancerous, horrible stuff like sulfur oxides and nitrous oxides. These are stuff that goes to humans' DNAs and affects our genes. And this is really bad. So we are exploring opportunities where we can find out if airports can be different way designed, and not just the airplane's engines, but the airport's design actually affects into it a lot. So now typically, if you look at any airport, it's a T model or a double T model where you have, a couple of huge runways and then plane takes off and that's it. And that uses a lot of energy. So a lot of the designers and urban developers and also architects are coming up with really wild ideas where maybe airplanes can be circular, so that the airplane uses much more friction rather than fighting against the elements, so that you can use less sulfur COX intensive fuel, because the slingshot style of circular airport can actually just like anything we have in space, it just slings it off to the air rather than actually just accelerating the fight against bad elements. So there are already designs in place, and some countries are really looking at building circular airports, which will be mental. It'd be crazy to see.
Yeah.
Totally. That would be crazy to land and take off in a circle.
Yeah.
I think we would have made it into an alternate reality if that was the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love hearing about all this very creative innovation and solutions to the problems that we have, and to your point, Pete, I do think it's interesting to kind of consider each one of these industries and sort of create these sort of small little sectors that are just focused on bringing innovation to, for example, the shipping industry, or bringing innovation to the airline industry. I mean, but I guess my question is, why aren't the companies themselves doing it? I mean, we live in an age of disrupt or die, right? And so, are you seeing these kinds of moves by these big companies to come up with these solutions, or are the solutions mostly coming from outside of the industry?
I mean, it's both, actually. I mean, some companies are really working hard on doing this. Like Unilever in Netherlands is a big company that if you look at it first, it doesn't really have much to do with logistics, but Unilever is everywhere. They produce shampoos, foods, everything. The plastics come from somewhere. They have to transfer and transport these products from somewhere to somewhere. So these companies like Unilever are not something that we can just shout at them, hey, make less plastic. It's also about what kind of transportation methods they use to transport those things. And they know it, and they're taking immediate action. They're not waiting around. And just like DHL, which is one of the world's biggest postal systems in Germany, they're switching almost entire German fleet of moving the products, which are mails and any other Amazon, anything that needs to be run by post. They already are switching into electric vehicles. They've done it already, and they're moving even more of their fleet into electric vehicles and hydrogen vehicles. So, and they've done it in-house, by the way. I mean, there has been some startups that developed the street scooter, which is the vehicle that DHL now uses. But DHL was very quick to realize the potential, and they acquired them, and now they developed about 50,000 of these vehicles now for whole Germany. And companies are taking action. They are doing these things. It's just not that it's not completely synchronized, but they are understanding that with the corporate responsibility that comes from the Paris Agreement, and they're taking that really seriously, which is tremendous to see, especially in Europe. I don't know how much it is abroad, but Chinese and European companies are saying, hey, if we don't do this, we need to somehow work together. And a lot of the car companies are somehow uniting reluctantly to do it because of the latest diesel scam going on. But most companies that we see that are taking initiatives are companies exactly like Unilever, DHL, even Coca-Cola Europe, and there's a lot of companies that are taking initiative on their own, but they need help. However, they're not very good at asking for it. That's also one of the reasons we want to invite them to events like Green Tech Festival to provide them the help, and cut the barriers off. So there's lots more going on at both ends.
Yeah, one of the things we've learned along the way here is that
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
that's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
Reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner,
or at JohnLG69.
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show. Yeah, one of the things we've learned along the way here is that expecting Coca-Cola to make changes is like saying, hey, you've got your ship underway, everything's on it, we want you to try this new ship mid-route. Like, they have to continue to conduct operations. And so for them, like any kind of evolution, is these iterative changes where they slowly move into more and more of these, and then there, you can have leaps because you've made the steps, because they still need to make their product show up on the doorstep, and nothing's more reliable than a diesel engine at this point. So to ask them just a wholesale change is really, it's more than what we would ask of ourselves. We have to allow for them to learn and create the impetus for change, which then ultimately creates it for their peer companies. Like if they're finding a way to pollute less and still deliver product, they get to say they're doing that. If they're saving on fuel, right? Like the first shipping company that saves 10% on fuel is going to have a 10% advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exactly, Coca-Cola is just one example. It's usually quite a regionalized organization, so it's not like that you're shipping Coca-Cola from Atlanta to Netherlands, for example.
Right.
So they're somehow involved, but they're not a big part of this. It's more the residue and what the consumers are dumping the products of Coca-Cola around the world. That's an entirely another subject that we're not even capable of addressing in something like Green Tech Festival. So. Yeah, in the ways you're nailing it as well. And you're saying, the companies that like Volvo, etc. Yes, they are culprits and they are trying to save money to make their shares to go up. But also, honestly, talking to these people, especially in World Economic Forum or any other conferences, the individual in that corporation is completely understanding that there is an action point need to be done. But I think what gets lost is when they sit around with other white men in suits in their boardroom and they go, yes, we need to make more money. If there were more diversity, ladies or from different ethnic backgrounds in their board, would they think differently or not? Maybe they wouldn't, but at least there will be different points of view coming across. And that is also the reason that we need to bring these people together so they can see that their companies that like Unilever, like DHL, that are doing great things because there's diverse voices in their organization.
I love that you brought that in. I love that you brought diversity into the topic because it's definitely something that's near and dear to my heart. And I actually have just been having this crazy dialogue on an article I recently wrote about bringing diversity and inclusion into AI. And just have gotten quite a backlash from the men in the group that somehow were triggered by that article. So it kind of proves the point. And it's also nice to see that there's now in California there are initiatives to make boards equal men and women. And I do think that you're right. It's like that influence from the top is so important in terms of how, and this is, for Pete, a company's culture, gets evolved. Yeah, no, super interesting. I think
one of the craziest things, so just to add on this, Sandra, one of the craziest things I've heard and I've seen is that there is this famous American internet company that, just call them Facebook, is actually the company. They design a completely. They design an offices, etc., in Europe and in a certain location, and then they also contracted the company to build it. these really automated hand washes, what we usually have at airports. And then after being installed and being, filled with staff, some of the ethnic staff, like blacks and Asians and stuff, they notice that when they go to the toilet and they put their hands underneath the faucet, the water will not come out. But the white employee, when they put their hand on the faucet, water will come out.
Huh.
What was clear and noticed and designed and also proven was that the entire team that designed and made those faucets were white.
That's incredible.
They never thought about that anyone else will use it. And this is exactly the problem. I mean, this is one of the problems that we are, we're thinking about the entire world when we're not actually able to think about the entire world. And we are not the entire world. We're not all the mobility. We're not all the tech. We're not everyone. I mean, it's just who we are not able to do that. So there are ways to battle it out if we just get everyone included. Not everyone, but just get more people included.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great example. To take another, just to go back to the mobility, because I've been kind of, really reading a lot about the future of mobility and how cars are now going to be, these sort of media consumption vehicles that, when we're going, in an autonomous car, or, there'll be places where we can do grocery shopping or other kinds of things. I mean, what is the future? What does the green future of mobility look like for you?
Well, for me, it's really eliminating most of the taxis that are buzzing around the cities. So one of the things that is really, for me personally, is eliminating a lot of the taxis that are buzzing around the cities of Europe nonstop. And I tell you why taxis. Just to give you an example, Madrid recently in Spain, and also in most of the big cities in Spain, but Madrid specifically has two immense problems right now with mobility. One is that there are way too many diesel cars, and second is that there are way too many cars, and the pollution there is suffocating. So what recently happened is that the taxis went on strike because they're not able to tolerate Cabify or Uber, which are the new technologies. So they went on strike for a couple of days. And what Madrileños, the Madrid people, noticed that the air became cleaner. There were less traffic. People could get to places much more faster, even those who used taxis before. And that was a waking call now. And then people are realizing it. I realized it for a while, because average taxi in a European city travels around 200 to 250 kilometers per day. And of that, 60 to 70% is on empty. There's no passengers involved. Whereas a system in place for future, ideally, should be that there are hubs or points of these cars or taxis that are not only driving around empty, but they're ordered, just like Uber today, but ordered on specific needs, and then they can go around and pick up more passengers and or leaving like on a point basis. Just to give you an example, in practicality, there is a scheme by Mercedes-Benz Corporation that they want to have some of their cars, like S-classes or E-classes, owned by individuals to be completely shareable and pod-like. So if you, for example, now Pete takes his E-class and drives his friend to a concert, and then he has to find a parking spot, he will then leave the car, and the E-class will find the parking spot on its own immediately, or will on its way communicate to other E-classes and Mercedes that where is the nearest parking spot, and then they will secure it and reserve it for the E-class because it's fully electric and it gets a free parking. So there are a lot of cities in Europe that are already experimenting with this, and it's actually in progress, especially in Norway or in cities like in Rotterdam in Netherlands. They are actually providing infrastructure and legislation for these things. So the future is to be completely like binary and simply is eliminating most of the taxis that are in the cities and replacing them with pods or replacing them with systems that are like more like transportation pods or on need systems that are on need basis. I know it also eliminates a lot of basic jobs, but also creates a lot of jobs as well.
Yeah, that creation of jobs, balancing things out, and it's It's interesting that geographically you're talking about northwestern or maybe northwestern and central Europe. And I know that's sort of where you're at physically and where you do things, but that does not sound like the Europe that I know that's in the south, like in Greece and Italy. It seems like when I've been there that they're much more dependent on scooters and cars to get around. Is that changing? You know, I've not been to Europe for a few years. Are those other countries? I mean, what's Romania going to do to keep up?
Well, this is fantastic to actually to get across to your listeners. Yes, and usually they are doing actually better than the Western Europeans. I mean, there are so many electric scooter companies coming from Greece and Italy because they're just fed up with the noises. It's not so much the pollution; it's the noise pollution that is affecting Italians and Spaniards and Greeks. It's if you've been there, this 50cc or 125cc scooter makes so much noise that it wakes up entire barrio. So in there, they're really generating great innovations. They're acquiring a lot of technologies from abroad and they're implementing it. So people are switching to a lot of electric scooters and electric last mile solutions like paddle scooters are electrified as well. And in Romania is actually a fantastic example. It has amazing startup culture happening there. Innovation is really striving and they're amazing coders. They're great IT people. And these people are understanding and they're forcing their friends and family to switch to certain technologies and to use more shared, for example, Airbnb and Uber, stuff like that. They're taking much more hold over there because the younger generation that are working in technologies, they're also understanding that it's better to share these things than let the Western Europeans to have all this. So yeah, they're getting it. They really are moving towards it. And it's seen, especially in Spain, where you see a lot of electric scooters are taking cities by storm, and because it's cheaper, it's quieter, and also it's much more fun. It goes faster.
There's those parts of Europe where, in the former Yugoslavia, Kosovo, you are very likely, if you get out of town, to see some kind of donkey and cart situation moving around. Are we approaching a time where the draft animal and a cart is going to go away because of the ubiquitous nature of electric vehicles, you think?
No, I don't think so, and I hope not, because it's part of humanity as well. But also, it's really, cost-wise and sometimes efficient for efficiency purposes also. And I don't think they're going to go away. And there are a lot of, you're right, in the former Yugoslavian nations, they still rely on the animal because they know if you just feed it and give water to it and they take care of it, you'll be fine. And whereas the engine is much more difficult to upkeep and you need to pay taxes, etc. And so I don't think that's going to go away for a really long time. But that's fine. Those people are not really contributing to our mess. They're actually maybe keeping it away. So that's totally fine. And there should be more of those.
In terms of the Green Festival, that sounds really, really exciting. What else are you up to, Kayvan? Tell us about your company, Magnetica.
Yeah, Magnetica is like we're small, one-stop destination for anything to do with branding and storytelling for really high-performance organizations and individuals. And through that, we have come up with a pretty ambitious project that it also has something to do with mobility. As you can see the pattern here, we are trying to, we are already putting in place a concept study for a massive mobility city, a physical mobility city. The city of Rotterdam is taking it on board, and they want to host this massive, over 15-hectare 45-acre physical mobility city, which will bring all the mobility players into one place and enable real-time ongoing innovation. So it's not like a scientific area. It's more where you bring, companies from Mercedes-Benz to SpaceX to Blue Origin, or physical representations to the mobility city, and you have universities there to feed the talent. The corporations, you have startups there to enable much more innovation, and investors and companies, and also government embassies to enable more visa-friendly interaction with non-European citizens. So there's a lot of components in the mobility, and it's already in a way. So hopefully by about 5 years, 6 years from now, we can see it being a complete reality.
That's great. And then that'll be a beacon of a city that we can all take inspiration from and encourage our own leaders to try to replicate. I think it's interesting
Exactly.
also, when you talked about branding, and I think that one of the things that is so needed in the conversation around the environment and green tech, like what's been missing is we've been having this doom and gloom, and like, oh my God, we're all going to die in 12 years, all these species are dying, and like, all of the negative stuff, which I think is important to, instill that fear. But we also need to, from a branding perspective, get those stories of hope, more of the stories of hope and solutions into the dialogue, so that it's not just like people want to go run and bury their heads in the sand because it's
Absolutely
such dire, terrible circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. The branding is so important. I mean, a lot of the things is right now. I mean, you guys in the United States have this huge potential to turn, the entire South and North America's direction towards, global warming, whereas China's already taken that initiative and they're leading it and leaving all of us Europeans in shame. So they're doing it through branding. They're communicating to the citizens and corporations that you need to do it really effectively, and storytelling and actually enabling a lot of companies in the right way, the right direction, and allowing them to be part of something cool that is also saving the earth is really important. So through companies like us, we're trying to help companies to rebrand and communicate it much more effectively, and and also achieve much more impact into an important generation who's been quite neglected. The seniors, the over 65s and 60s, and we need to address to them. We need to show them that this is not just something that young people can solve, and they can be also part of it. And that's something that we also thrive.
That's wonderful. That's great.
That exclusion that people automatically feel, like Sandra mentioned, the 12 years, and this is often mocked by people that are like, come on. And so there is a gap that you have to close between folks who are prepared to deal with this kind of thing and then folks that are not. And I'm not trying to say which side is right or wrong, but there is the problem of getting people to move in one common direction, and not being put off by messages that they just can't receive. What do we do? I mean, I know you have the green tech thing, but what else can we do on a day-to-day basis to try to talk to one another instead of at one another? We just do so much of this, especially on Twitter, so much talking at each other,
Yeah, this is something I have no solutions to. I mean, I only can do what myself and my friends are doing. We're just showing, and we're really just showing to our parents and to our grandparents that there are other ways to do things. Simply from eating side of the things. Just my mother is carnivore, so she's normally not. For a couple of years ago, she was not really into green food, or let's say vegan or vegetarianism. But we showed her like this. Actually, there are a lot of things that taste really good, and they're not. You're not gonna not have meat forever. But if you reduce a little bit less, and you eat this kind of a food that we are promoting, made from plants and renewable things, and you actually feel better, and etc. etc. So by showing consistently and insisting on it, but gently, not just at each other like you said, but just consistently and just gently, and planting the seeds there, and having a 2 or 3 year plan, rather than being like, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to walk away from you and I want to see you. No, it's just eventually walking towards it, and also promoting it through your friendship networks. Like, for example, I'm not vegan, neither am I vegetarian, but I am publicly saying when we go to restaurants or something, hey, I'm not just going to eat meat during this week because I want to try not to do it. And by the way, it's one of the major major problems we have in this world right now. And as you know, and blah blah blah. So just by little, just like also influencing a network, friendly way, and not shouting to each other. And because I got influenced like that, my friends got me on on this on the board of not having so much meat, is gently just saying, hey, and I still eat meat, but something is I also ask from the restaurants where it comes from, is it local, etc. And lots in Europe, I mean, we're good at it, and lots of countries in Europe we're not good at it. So gently just going towards it is what I always suggest.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's just good to be aware. And I've had the same impact from my friends. And of course, seeing all these cute, happy cows with their friends, especially the animal pairs. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely having an impact, and it's good to just, continue to spread the word in our own individual little bubbles or ecosystems to just kind of share knowledge in a non-threatening way, but in a way that, makes it accessible.
Yeah, I think we're experiencing currently we're experiencing overflow information. We have a lot of information coming from different directions. And, I don't need to preach for that. I mean, I'm getting it, you're getting it. Everyone's getting a lot of information. And, in the age of information manipulation, we don't also know which ones to believe in. And our parents or even some of our friends are getting skeptical of which information they should believe in. So the best, I think, source of information is being friends and telling to your friends, that I have done it from experience. So being the megaphone of the factual information that you experience yourself, I think it's much more important. Then, end of the day, we do buy from each other. We get recommendations on the cars, on the watches, and whatever, and we buy that usually. So why not do the same with things that are very important globally?
Hey, Kayvan, I don't want to keep you too long, but I do want to get into one of the things you wrote about on LinkedIn. And that's where everybody should go check out Kayvan. That's where he's at if you want to talk to him, or if you have some kind of project for him to work on, go to LinkedIn and look him up there. But you talk about, and I do this a lot because of the nature of what I do. I'm a connector of people. And you talk about your sort of your guidance on what it takes to get someone to do an introduction, the art of the introduction, 10 tips to make better introductions. I love this because one of the things that, LinkedIn is great at is linking people together and giving me the wonderful opportunity to introduce people that should know each other. The other thing is it's an open door where someone can stand there and kind of knock on my desk and say, I would like to pitch this person, introduce me. And it's I don't like to ignore people because that's sort of just my own personal Pete thing. But I also don't want to just introduce people when there's no actual exchange of. I don't know that person needs to know the other person.
Yeah. So it's a delicate thing. If it's also about getting to know the person who wants the introduction first, and understanding if that person is really worth the other person's time. And that's really where your own radar comes into play. I get that a lot. Everyone gets it. I even done it before and I still do it. Hey, can you introduce me to this person? And at the end of the day, it's really keeping it brief and not sounding like you are desperate for it, even if you are. And even if you're not, that's fine. But just give reasons really briefly. Hey, I want to meet Jeff Bezos. I know you know him because of this reasons, but I'm working on this really cool rocket that is working on, I don't know, whatever, lollipops. And I think he will love it. Do you think he'll be interested in it? Instead of asking, introduce me to Jeff, I think you should ask, do you think Jeff will be interested in this? And do you think he's doing something right now that is, doing something towards enabling rockets to run on lollipops? I don't know. But asking the interest level of that person makes you also find out as the requester if that person is really going to be taking on board your suggestions, or are they even relevant to you? Maybe Jeff is not even relevant. Maybe he's his COO or whatever guy. But that person who knows Jeff or you're asking, he is your only contact. So make him also part of the conversation. And by asking if he's interested, you also engage the person who's connecting you and having a nice conversation. And then finally, you should be able to direct it so that person who wants to connect you, who's potentially connecting you, really wants to connect you and understands you. I know it has to be done a little bit of work. You have to do a little bit of work, but you also get a meaningful connection out of that.
The other thing I do is I take my time and, people don't get enough letters that are like, hey, Kayvan is a really trustworthy guy. I've known him for a long time, and I really appreciate everything he does. I like to try to put something in there for each of the people that I'm introducing so that they hear, what I think about them. And that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy it is like, these are really good people. You guys, even if you don't do business, whatever, that's not my business. That's your guys' business. But I want to have the opportunity to do that. If I don't know you and you just want to pitch somebody, then you should pitch them, and just get on to the pitching. But yeah, it's and I like to say yes to anybody who wants to be introduced, but yeah, give me something so I can do it. And if I'm going to take the time to write that much of a thoughtful note, then you should take the time to write me something explaining
Absolutely
why you're worth my time.
And we should also be okay just saying no to some of those introductions, because for some of these people, you really only have, one shot to connect with them. And, if you don't feel like it's viable, you should be okay saying, look, I'm not comfortable with it, go to somebody else.
Yeah, you could be also gentle about it. I mean, I always think that you never know what the person in asking for the introduction, you never know where they're going to be in 5 years' time. They might be the CEO of Coca-Cola. You really don't know. You might be the next chief of staff of the United States, like the government is doing. So you never know. So always be really gentle. And if the person asks an introduction to Jeff, you can just say, hey, I'll ping you back when Jeff is looking for something like this, So you always keep them on your side, as well as you being also gentle about it. And by the way, I mean, one of the things I kind of do recommend is when someone, I get that a lot. So someone's asking me, hey, can you introduce me to this person? I said, I this time I think no, but by the way, they're going to be at this event in this city. I recommend you go to this event and tell them that you know me, and then see what happens. So you kind of like open them the door, and you don't shut anything, and you enable them with some information that they might never knew before. So also directing them towards that person in an open way is totally fine.
That's great advice.
Yeah, great advice. So tell us again where we can find you on LinkedIn. Is your main area? Anything else coming up that we need to know about?
Well, yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is what I use because you can see everyone's profile. It's clean, and people usually are much more communicative in business sense there. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Kayvan Nikjou. It's a weird Persian name, but it works in Europe. Nobody forgets you. And besides, I mean, I use my Facebook, which is public, but I don't so much. So I'm really communicating in WhatsApp and stuff and LinkedIn. But what really passionates me or really drives me forward is I'm into Europe. Europe is my thing, but also I help European companies go to the United States. I help other way around United States companies come to Europe, meet with startups, investors, and celebrities, etc. So if people are interested in branding and creativity and mobility, especially in green tech future, I love to know about it. So just get in touch and let me know if I can help you.
All right.
Wonderful.
Kayvan Nikjou, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.